Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel. We are starting with the interview preparation series now. I will be starting with HTML related questions, then CSS, and mix of both these two. Okay, so in this video I'm going to discuss what is HTML and then one more question like tags versus elements or tags versus attributes. Okay, all right. So if a question will be asked to me in the interview like what exactly is HTML, explain me what is HTML. Okay, and so how would I be answering is that HTML stands for hypertext markup language. Okay, so first point would be hypertext markup language. 1.2 note over here is that HTML is not a programming language, it is a markup language, which means like any programming language would be the one in which like if I can do any mathematical operations, like if I do 2 plus 2, then any other programming language will always be returning me 4. Okay, but in case of HTML, if I'm doing 2 plus 2, then it will give me the output as 2 plus 2 only. It will showcase me on the web page that 2 plus 2 will be written on the web page like that. Okay, so this is a very important point to note over here, is that HTML is not a programming language, it is a markup language, and it stands for hypertext markup language. Inside this full form, hypertext basically means is that any web page, any text which basically allows you to connect with another web page, so that text will be known as your hypertext. So this is the entire definition of hypertext markup language. Other than this, HTML also is the building block of a web page, is the building block of a website. It is a skeleton of a website, which means each and every single and the smallest unit that we see on a website will be built and would be developed inside the HTML, and it will be displayed on the browser. So what it is a building block of a web page. It is also known as skeleton of website. Okay, so this is the second point. Third point would be any file if I'm creating with the extension of .html, that file would be an HTML file. Okay, so any file would be created using HTML would be a file which is HTML file. Okay, so now whatever the code that I'm writing inside this file would be executed by the browser. Okay, it will always be executed by the browser, which means HTML is a platform independent language. What did I mention? It is a platform independent language, which means if I'm working on Mac OS, it will give me the same output. If I'm working with the Windows, it will give me the same output, Linux or any other thing. So any operating system, we do not depend on any operating system, we only and only depend on the browser that we are using. Okay, so if any browser will see .html file, it will basically take all the content that is present inside it and it will display it inside on the browser. So last point that we can add basically could be that HTML works with the symbols. As we talked about, key HTML is a markup language, so it always works with the symbols. Like for example, this is an opening tag, so we have a different meaning of an opening tag. This is a closing tag, so we have a different meaning of closing tag, and so on. So it basically helps us to create all the HTML elements and the web page elements that we have by using all these symbols. So this is all about what is HTML. Then we can take up our next question, which is tags versus elements. Tag versus elements. Yeah, or we can add attributes also to this. So tags versus elements versus attributes. Okay, so if someone asks me this question inside the interview, how will I answer this question? Tags versus elements versus attributes. Okay, so in HTML, tag is something which basically it has a tag name and it has then one opening tag, then it will contain some closing tag. Okay, so all these things are related to tags only. Okay, each and every single tag inside HTML has a separate meaning. For example, h1 is a tag which you can also call it as a tag name. Okay, so h1 is a tag which basically is useful to create headings. Okay, Then again, h2 is a tag name, which basically again is a tag, but it helps us to create headings with a lower emphasis. Okay, if I talk about img is a tag once again. Okay, but it helps us to create images. So each and every single tag that we have in HTML, they have a different usage. Okay, so I'll just say that tags is something which contains some tag name here. This is my opening tag. This complete thing would be my opening tag. This complete thing would be known as my closing tag. Closing tag. So this is how we can define that what are tags. Okay, now if I talk about what are elements, for example, I take an example of what for example, if I'm having an image tag. Okay, this is my image tag, href. Now in image we have source, some URL, close, some text, and then closing image tag. Okay, so in this, how will I answer for elements versus attribute? Is that any element, any inside HTML, any element which contains an opening tag and text content and closing tag. So something which basically gives you the entire HTML on the web page is known as your HTML element. So over here, this is opening tag, this is attribute, this is text content, and this one is closing tag. So the combination of all these things would be your element, HTML element. This one, when you define the properties of any HTML element, is basically your attributes. So I hope the difference between these three are clear. If you want to do a revision recap of this thing, so tags are the ones which basically has specific properties depending on different tag name. For example, h1 is a tag name, but it is useful to create, it gets used to create headings inside the web page. Image is a tag name, but it is used to create images on the web page. Okay, these are your tags, different tags inside HTML. Okay. Then comes as elements. Elements are the ones which basically is a combination of opening tag, text content, and closing tag. So entire HTML element will be in like some output on the web page. That would be your HTML element. Okay. Attributes are the ones which basically added which basically are the properties that gets added inside the HTML tag. Okay, which means in the opening tag we will be adding any kind of properties that we add. They are basically the attributes of HTML. Okay, that's it for this video. In the next video we'll be discussing more interview questions, and yeah, thank you so much for watching.